Eruvin Daf. Hey, today's email comes to us from Jeff Gordon from Boynton Beach, Florida, and he says, first, thanks for being a great reason to keep the streak going. I started with the cycle and never imagined I would still be here as I didn't pick up a Gemara since high school, etc., etc. Thanks, Jeff Gordon. Eruvin Daf discusses, we said if you have a kaira that's above 20 amos in a mavo, you have to bring it down. The cross beam that tells us that this is the end of the mavo, there's another trick. What if you raise the floor? Rav Yosef says you need to raise one tefach width. Abaye says 4 tefachim, and the Gemara brings 4 different possibilities to understand the machlokes. One possibility is that the kaira acts as a mechitza, as a partition, an invisible partition. The question is, what part of the kaira comes down? Is it the inner part closer to the houses inside the mavoi? And if that's the case, it comes down. You cannot use anything beyond that. You can't use underneath the kaira. Or Rav Yosef says it's the outer part of the kaira that comes down. That's the partition, and therefore I could use everything underneath the kaira. Or according to everybody, it's permitted to use underneath the kaira. The machlokes is, according to Rav Yosef, the kaira doesn't act as a mechitza. The kaira acts as a heker, a realization that you're about to enter the Rishus and be careful, don't carry anything there. Therefore, 1 tefach raise is enough for you to realize that you're about to go into the Rishus. But according to Abaye, it's a mechitza. Mechitza needs a makam chashuv. You need 4 tefachim. Or according to everybody, this kaira is a heker. It's a realization. The machlokes is, does the bottom realization need to be the same size as the upper one? Abaye says no, it needs to be different. It needs to be much wider. It needs to be 4 tefachim. He says no, it should be the same, only a tefach. Or according to everybody, it's the same measurement. The machlokes is, do I make a gzera that perhaps people step on it and ruin it? They'll reduce it to nothing. So therefore, you make it 4 tefachim according to Rav Yosef. According to Abaye, and according to Rav Yosef, only 1 tefach. What about a different case? Very similar case. I bring the kaira down to less than 10 tefachim, and that's no good. So one way to do it is raise the kaira up. Another way to do it is, it seemed like the hard way, dig underneath the kaira. How much do you have to dig? Now, right now I don't have kosher walls, so therefore the machlokes is slightly different. According to Abaye, I need dalet amas to dig, dalet amas wide, almost 8 feet. According to Rav Yosef, only 4 tefachim. Now, the Gemara brings a case where if there's a gap in the actual alleyway, not by the opening, but the wall adjacent to the opening, and the wall adjacent to the opening does not have 4 tefachim. So what happens is the kaira does not allow you to carry in this mavui because we're concerned that people might come through the big gap and they won't even notice that there's a kaira, unless the gap is so small that it's less than 3 tefachim, and then I could use lavet to close it up. Now, what if there on that wall there is 4 tefachim? Rav Ami says that the kaira says I could use the mavui as long as the gap is less than 10 amas. I have up to 10 amas in a gap. Why is that? Because once I have 4 tefachim, now I have a considerable mavi. I have a real mavi that's 4 tefachim, and a kair, that works. The gap doesn't hurt me. So the Gemara wants to say that Rav Yosef holds, like Rav Dimi, that 4 tefachim makes a mavi kosher. And Abaye doesn't hold like Rav Ami. But you could argue that this is different. This is a case, in our case, when you dig underneath the kaira, this mavi was never kosher to begin with. In a case where you had a mavi that was kosher and the wall fell down, so 4 tefachim is enough. Says Abaye, but this mavi was never kosher, therefore I need a much larger area of 4 amas. Abaye says that a lechi and a kaira only work where the 2 courtyards dump in to the mavi. Now, if you're dealing with a mavi that's exactly 4 by 4, says Gemara, it's impossible to have 2 doorways that go into 4 by 4 because each doorway has to be 4 tefachim wide, and the doorway has a jam, and with the jam, it's more than 4 tefachim. It takes away from your mavi. And if you're going to tell me that the mavi is only 4 deep, but let's say it's 10, 15 long, that's not the right way of a mavi. A mavi is the exact reverse. A mavi is narrow and long, and narrow on the opening and long the whole mavi, and you want to make it long on the opening and narrow on the mavi. That doesn't work. But Rabbi Yosef could explain that we go on an angle, as you see in the picture. Their 2 openings are on angles, and therefore, even though the actual mavi area is 4 by 4 tefachim, but since the door is on an angle, it's a little bit more than 4 tefachim, and that allows me to put a jam there. A lechi, which is very wide, you put it there on purpose, more than 4 amas, is kosher. But if you didn't put it there on purpose, you built a wall, you thought you were building a building, and all of a sudden you say, hey, you know what, let me use this as a lechi, then it is pasul. So you need another lechi to be mater it. Either it's on the opposite side of the original long lechi, or it's on the lechi itself, and you make it a little shorter or a little taller, according to one shot in Rashi, and this will be a raya to Abaye. Rav Yosef says, to make a lechi pasul, you need dalet amas, but to make a lechi kosher, then the mavi only needs 4 tefachim. Rav Huna Bereder Rav Yeshua says that a lechi that's 4 amas makes a mavi pasul if the opening is 8 amas. But what if the opening is 7 amas? And your lechi is 4. So 4 is the majority of the opening. So it's oimid merub al aparatz, and that's kosher. And he makes a kavachomer from a chatzar. You see by a chatzar that if you have a gap in a chatzar, but it's oimid merub al aparatz, it's kosher, even though chatzar doesn't help a lechi nikari. And a mavi certainly it should work because the lechi nikari will work. Rav Ashi says that even if you have 8, not 7, the lechi still works. Miman afshach. Either the lechi is larger than the remaining opening, and therefore it's omer parts, and if it's less, it works anyways. And if it's exactly even, this is a safek d'Rabbanan, and safek d'Rabbanan likula. Have a wonderful day.